Alright, in this video we're gonna finally dive into the verse-by-verse exposition of Isaiah 13. I hope you're excited and I hope you have already watched the previous video, which is an overview of chapters 13 through 14, which is on the Oracle of Babylon. And the previous video, which is about Isaiah 13 through 27, which is an overview of the whole Oracle on the nations. Okay, so watch those two videos first and then come follow with me as we dive into the text. Isaiah 13:1. The oracle concerning Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw. Pause. All right, don't overlook these verses. Okay, they don't seem important, but they're very important. Why is this verse important? The oracle concerning Babylon. First of all, we have the word masa, once again is rarely used, that signals a new section. But also, which Isaiah the son of Amos saw, that formula also signals a new section. But more importantly, we need to ask the question, why is Isaiah speaking about Babylon? Okay, and I ask this question because in Isaiah's time, Babylon was a vassal state, a mere vassal state under the yoke of Assyria. Babylon would not become its own empire, an independent, its own rightful empire until about a century after the death of Isaiah. So critical scholars pick this up right away and say, this book of Isaiah, especially this chapter, this section, is written 100 years after, at least 100 years after the death of Isaiah, and hence not by Isaiah himself, but someone else under the name of Isaiah, because how would he have known this events to come had he not seen them happen? But of course, we conservatives believe God can tell him. God can make his plans known to Isaiah about what's going to happen. But that is a true explanation, but there are some other explanations we can also offer. First of all, Babylon was a glorious city empire that was like the signature empire of the Mesopotamia. They were traditionally the most powerful, the traditional hegemony of the region. Okay, that they were the center of culture, even though Assyria had conquered them. Babylon was the traditional center of the world. And so much that when Tiglath-Pileser, like a king of Assyria, conquers Babylon, he felt it necessary to be crowned the king of Babylon. Okay? So that's the first reason. Another reason why Isaiah is talking about Babylon here and why it makes sense that he should be talking about it in his lifetime, even though Babylon was under the yoke of Assyria, is because Babylon was a political entity at that time that rivaled its overlord Assyria. For example, we see in Isaiah 39 that Babylon, King Merodach-Baladan, sends the delegations to Hezekiah, encouraging Hezekiah to join Babylon in its revolt against Assyria. So, even the Babylonian Empire is a vassal state at this point under Assyria. Even so, Babylon was a constant threat to Assyria, and every historian would agree with this point. So, there is a need. It's not a random thing that Isaiah suddenly talks about Babylon here, because there was a need that Isaiah speaks some word about the traditionally glorious power. Third, Isaiah knew by the revelation of God, of course, that it would not be Assyria that would destroy Judah. Right? We saw that. But then we have to talk about how the previous oracle about Assyria being destroyed would come true. In other words, in the oracles given to Ahaz in 7 through 12, we saw that Assyria, the rod of God, is going to be judged herself, right? And Babylon's going to destroy her. But what's going to happen to Babylon? Isaiah is offering an answer here. Okay? Remember, the overarching idea behind these oracles of nations is that Judah should not trust these kingdoms for safety and security, because these kingdoms themselves will be judged by God and will be destroyed. And hence, how foolish is it for you, Judah, to trust in these kingdoms? And Babylon will be an attractive diplomatic option for Hezekiah to lean on to seek security from Assyria. And I think he does make that mistake of leaning on Babylon instead of solely leaning on the Lord, which we'll cover later. But so chapter 13 and 14 make a complete sense, in my opinion, that Isaiah in his lifetime should be talking about Babylon, even though Babylon is will not become a full, independent, rightful empire until about a century after the death of Isaiah. Right, that was verse 1. Reading on. Verse 2. On a bare hill, raise a signal, cry aloud to them, wave the hand for them to enter. The gates of the nobles. I myself have commanded my consecrated ones, and have summoned my mighty men to execute my anger, my proudly exulting ones. So what God is saying is that God has these consecrated ones, and this is not Babylon, nor is this Judah. Consecrated ones, we'll see later in verse 17 that it's meat. What is happening is that God has these set-apart people for his purpose to destroy Babylon. That is the consecrated. My consecrated ones is referring to the Medes / Persians who will destroy Babylon. Okay? So the sanctity is here not of character but the status, okay, for a divine service. Okay? God has separated certain people to destroy Babylon. Verse 4. The sound of a tumult is on the mountains as of a great multitude. The sound of an uproar of kingdoms, of nations gathering together. The Lord of hosts is mustering a host for battle. They come from a distant land, from the end of the heavens. The Lord and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So these people, consecrated ones of God, are coming from very, very far place to destroy Babylon. And note in verse 5 at the end that they are coming to destroy the whole land, whole earth. Babylon is described in terms of the whole land, and this is one possible hint that this oracle has an eschatological tint to it. Verse 6. Wail, for the day of the Lord is near. Day of the Lord, once again, is often eschatological, and it's not always, but often. As destruction from the Almighty it will come. Verse 7. Therefore, all hands will be feeble, and every human heart will melt. They will be dismayed. Pangs and agony will seize them. They will be in anguish like a woman in labor. They will look aghast at one another. Their faces will be aflame. So these are some terrible things that will happen on the day of the Lord. Verse 9. Behold, the day of the Lord comes. Once again, the day of the Lord. Cruel with wrath and fierce anger, to make the land a desolation and to destroy its sinners from it. Verse 10 is important. For the stars of the heavens and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark at its rising, and the moon will not shed its light. I will punish the world for its evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. I will put an end to the pomp of the arrogant and lay low the pompous pride of the ruthless. Pause. All right. Verse 10 I said is important because it's talking about these heavenly bodies not giving their light. Okay, for stars and heavens and their constellations will not give their light. The withdrawal of light, you have to note, the withdrawal of light is a symbol of the oncoming darkness of divine judgment. Okay, the Exodus plague of darkness spoke of the coming final judgment upon Israel. Okay, so this idea, this motif of celestial bodies being darkened or changed, shifted somehow, falling or something, is it's highly eschatological. We see that a lot. We see that in Joel. We see this whole thing of bloody moon, the so-called bloody moon, right? People get excited and it gets on the news when we'll see a bloody moon. It's because it comes out in the Bible. These signs will be seen in celestial bodies. Okay, and I'm pointing this out because verse 10 once again suggests that this could have an eschatological sense to it, not just a prophecy about the immediate kingdom that will rise in the 7th century BC. Does that make sense? Hope so. Yeah, and verse 11 too, I will punish the world for its evil. Okay, world, there's some sense of universal dealing with human beings and affairs in this day of the Lord. All right, keep reading from verse 12. I will make people more rare than fine gold, and mankind than the gold of Ophir. Therefore, I will make the heavens tremble, and the earth will be shaken out of its place at the wrath of the Lord of hosts in the day of his fierce anger. And like a hunted gazelle, or like sheep with none to gather them, each will turn to his own people, and each will flee to his own land. Whoever is found will be thrust through, and whoever is caught will fall by the sword. Their infants will be dashed in pieces before their eyes. Their houses will be plundered, and their wives ravished. So Isaiah is giving a little more details about this judgment that's coming. And if you go back to the chiastic structure that I talked to you about, we just finished the section A, the overthrow of Babylon and the pronouncement of judgment. And let's keep reading on from verse 17. Behold, I am stirring up the Medes against them. Here we have the answer. Who is these consecrated ones? It's the Medes. Medes are very closely associated with the Persians, and in modern day Iran. Okay, modern day Iran would be Medes. That's where the Medes were, and they will become kind of merged into the Persian Empire, and that's why we know that the language that Iranians speak, there are multiple languages. The main one that they speak is Farsi, right? Farsi is Iranian language. Farsi comes from the word Persia. Okay, so Medes technically they're not Persians, but they will kind of merge into one later in history. But so the Medes are gonna be the ones that will destroy Babylon. Verse 18, their bows will slaughter the young men. They will have no mercy in the fruit of the womb. Their eyes will not pity children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the splendor of pomp of the Chaldeans, will be like Sodom and Gomorrah when God overthrew them. It will never be inhabited or lived in for all generations. No Arab will pitch his tent there, no shepherds will make their flocks lie down there. But wild animals will lie down there, and their houses will be full of howling creatures. There ostriches will dwell, and there wild goats will dance. Hyenas will cry in its towers, and jackals in the pleasant palaces. Its time is close at hand, and its days will not be prolonged. So this was a section B in the chiastic structure, the overthrow of the Babylonian Empire, with a little more details, with who's gonna destroy and what the aftermath is gonna be. And it's never gonna be inhabited. In verse 20, no Arab will pitch his tent there. No Arab will pitch his tent there. The Hebrew word for Arab, by the way, is Aravi. Okay, so Arabs were back then some nomadic people. Okay, they were nomadic people, and the importance here is that not even the nomads will pitch his tent there in Babylon once it gets destroyed. It is so bad, the ash, the trash, the stench and everything, that it's so worth not living in the city of Babylon, the area of Babylon, even for nomads who have no home and who wander around. Okay, that's the point of using Arabs here. It will never be inhabited so badly that not even nomads, the Arabs, will pitch their tent there. Does that make sense? All right. What else? I wish I can just take questions live. But let's talk about the fulfillment of this 17 through 22, the section B. It has been much discussed. When was this fulfilled? And it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult because we have so many options. Because if you look at just the history of Babylon itself, like apart from just biblical sources, like all the Babylonian sources and so on, there's so many events that got Babylon destroyed. But long story short, it probably was fulfilled in 518 BCE, before Christ. And there's some other options, but I think that's the one I think that makes most sense. That's when Xerxes completes the destruction that had been begun by Darius, his Hystaspes. Okay, yeah, but to be honest, it is not that terribly important for us to be able to pinpoint to a specific event in history when this was fulfilled. There are other prophecies, there are some prophecies where we can more easily and more assuredly pinpoint to a specific fulfillment in history when this happened, but it doesn't need to be the case, okay? Isaiah here is laying out some principles, once again, that will be applied to the eschatological events. So I'm just doing my best, but it is a worthy question to ask, when was this fulfilled? Okay, it's not a worthless question to ask, but it is not always clear when this was fulfilled. I personally believe it was fulfilled in 518 BC by Xerxes the Mede. All right, this was chapter 13, but remember, chapter 14 is a continuation of chapter 13, so make sure you listen to both videos.